My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, their songwriting techniques, and occasionally getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. Welcome to episode 186. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Isabella Manfredi. The previous frontwoman for the Preatures is stepping out on her own, and this Friday releases her first solo record, entitled Izzi. In today's episode, we're speaking with Isabella about stepping out on her own, her love of Laurel Canyon, and how Atomic Kitten plays into this new record. Here we go. Our guest today is a well-known indie rock musician and songwriter within the Australian music scene. She fronted indie rock band The Preatures for 10 years before recently leaving the band and forging her own path, which has led us to her debut record, Izzi, which comes out today. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Isabella Manfredi. Hello, how are we?
Hello, I'm really good. And just a slight correction, it's Manfredi. Manfredi. Manfredi.
I apologise.
Manfredi. It's all right.
I apologise because firstly, I feel like I've heard it pronounced that way previously, which is in the era of those other people. But you have been, I guess, in the public consciousness for a while now, for the last 10 years. And now having your own name out there as this project, I imagine must be kind of a very exciting thing.
It is. It's satisfying in the way that I didn't want to be known for being a Manfredi when I started in the band, and I was very comfortable, I think, to have a shield of an entity to sort of wrap myself in, and I liked being part of a group and not having the attention on me. And now I'm definitely at a point in my life where it's very different, and I want to be myself. I want to have my own name. It feels like a step into maturity for me, definitely.
Of course. It for anyone who might not know what we're talking about, and I imagine that if you've been paying attention to the Australian music scene in the last 10 years, you should know, but for those few living under a rock, the previous project that we are talking about was the band The Preatures, very well-known band in Australia, award-winning. But you yourself, you are releasing your own solo album this week. It is called Izzi. So it is, as you've just said, it's very much yourself. It really is just your name on there. Firstly, congratulations, because this album is gorgeous. We were lucky enough to have a listen. So firstly, congratulations on this album.
Thank you. I'm really excited. Thanks.
No, of course. As discussed, this album, it is the first under your name. You have released albums with The Preachers previously in the past, but I wonder, now gearing up and turning on the machine again in terms of promo, press, things like this, when you do release an album, how is it feeling this time around, having just yourself here and yourself doing the press? I imagine that it's different in both a number of good and bad ways.
Yeah. You mentioned turning on the machine. It is a bit like that. It is a bit like oiling up an old sort of mechanical robot, that hasn't been in use. It's sort of been in the cupboard for a while. But there's a part of me that just becomes lit up by this whole process. It really does. There's a part of me that is thrilled to be back, talking about the music, being able to talk about the record, because it's been such a long process. I mean, 5 years since I last had a record out, and 5 years since I really did any big touring as well with the band. Well, maybe 2018 was probably the last year that we did an official tour. But yeah, there's also a part of me that is loving doing it on my own. I don't feel mixed about it. I thought I might feel mixed. I think the missing of the band might come in the live shows, because that's a whole new territory that I haven't explored on my own yet, and I might have some grief come up, particularly about the loss of that unit and the dynamism and the sense of familiarity that you get when you've played with the same people for over 10 years. But then there's also just because this really essential part of me has been missing for a long time, and I think that's something that a lot of artists and musicians and even just people who travel for a living have experienced over the last few years of COVID. It's a shared experience. I don't think there are many people who have been left unscathed by it, but definitely for me, I just feel thrilled, like this sense of just pure beating, pulsing exaltation at being allowed even to have a glimpse of that life again, and to have music out in the world, put a record, press a vinyl, go and play some shows, talk to people. I feel and I have felt really disconnected from something essential in my life for a while now, and now I'm just very happy. Yeah,
that's incredible to hear. I feel like it does kind of come across in the music there. It almost feels like there has been somewhat of a, I want to say, rejuvenation or a recharge, or that there's something within you that kind of comes across orally in these songs, that you are back and kind of ready to go. The record, as I mentioned before, it's titled Izzi, and I know that you kind of have been working on this record for a number of years. I believe that this was not just a Sydney-based writing experience. I believe that this record was written across the globe. I think Paris, Berlin, Nashville, London, LA. What was the songwriting process like this time around, where you're traveling quite a lot and being able to experiment and create in all these different locations and environments?
Well, I don't think I knew at that point that I was writing an album. At the onset of that trip, I think my goal was to just get out. And I had really dried up artistically. I had a lot of writer's block. I was struggling to write lyrics to really great pieces of instrumentals and riffs and ideas that the guys were bringing in the band, and I felt like I didn't have a sense of who I was on my own, and I knew that that trip was an opportunity for me to, one, just be alone and I just needed to be alone. I love traveling on my own, and I love, one of my favorite things to do that I don't get to do anymore because I have a baby is just go to a cafe and sit, or go to a restaurant and have dinner on my own and just watch people. I think it's part of being an only child. I love my own company, and I needed to reconnect with that part of myself as a writer as well. So the whole trip was actually a resuscitation of myself as a writer. And I remember being in Paris, which was the first week, and just I'd rented this little apartment with a piano in it and had all these grand designs to, practice every day and learn Chopin songs or whatever the fuck, I'd set up for myself. And I just spent the whole week kind of depressed and didn't really do anything. And I spent it just wandering around Paris, feeling really sorry for myself, and going in and out of bars and places, and I think it's that, it's that kind of sweet ache feeling that you have when you have this kind of anxiety or tenderness, and you're vulnerable, but it's also a time that you look back on with a lot of fondness, I think, because those moments are they're sweet in a way. And then I went to Berlin and I worked with Anton Newcomb from Brian Jonestown Massacre, which was just like fucking crazy. I mean, the Brian Jonestown Massacre had just broken up again, and he was back in his studio. I'd met him at Glastonbury a couple of years before that, and he'd, just like razor-eyed me and be like, not razor-eyed or laser-eyed, but kind of razor-eyed as well.
Both work,
Yeah, and he'd just gone, you need to step into my star hole. You've got to come and work with me in Berlin, and that was, it was an interesting experience. All the rumors are true about him, and that's all I will say about it. But it was great because really what I wanted to learn was because he's so prolific, and a big missing piece for me, I think, in the Preatures was we toured a lot and we were prolific as a live band, and I definitely got a lot of great experience out of that. But I didn't get to sink my teeth into recording, and I longed to be a prolific songwriter and a prolific recording artist. So I never got to fulfill that longing in the band, and I was looking to other artists who might be able to.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Provide a key to how you do that. Like, how do you get prolific? What do you need to let go of? What do you need to be able to do? Do you have to be able to play everything and record everything? So I was really interested in just watching his process And I did. And then I got the fuck out of there. And then I went to London, and that was where I wrote Jealousy, which was really that was kind of the first kickoff song of that whole period. And after that it was just it just sort of, I think as an artist you do go through natural rhythms and periods of inactivity where you get really afraid that it's never going to happen again. And I still go through those periods, but I've just gotten better at understanding that there's a natural there's a natural rhythm to it and a balance that happens. And by the time I got to LA, I was in full swing, and it just, once you're in the swing, stuff just kind of runs out of you like water, and it's great. It's quite addictive, actually. So now I'm back in LA, and I'm trying to get back in that place again.
Well, I'm glad that, one, that you're able to get out of Berlin safely, but two, that it was able to kind of help kick off that moment of, I guess, where we are now, having this record and being able to enjoy this record. I know that, mentioning that you're in LA, I know that you do have a bit of a, possibly something that we might have in common, a bit of a love of Americana and the, I guess, Laurel Canyon lore, history, whatever people might refer to it as. And I know this kind of came into play with the record. You worked with Jonathan Wilson, who's worked with artists like Angel Olsen, or works very closely with Father John Misty. When you were working with him, who I think he produced about 6 tracks on this record on Izzi, you gave him some really interesting reference points into what you thought the record sounded like.
Yeah, I did. He, one of the things that we really connected over, me and him, were the different reference points and the kind of taste that is difficult. Well, had been, in my experience, difficult to translate with, I would say, male producers of a certain age who also play guitar. It's rare for them to go, yeah, oh my God, TLC is just like fantastic. Or it's rare for them to go, yeah, Atomic Kitten, okay, I can see, yeah, totally. And that my love for early 2000s pop and R&B, which is, not revolutionary now. It's like Olivia Rodrigo's brought back that, Natalie Imbruglia was bloody on the Sour tour just recently.
Yeah. And
so all of that is coming back into vogue. But for me, it was the music that that was what was on the radio when I was younger. And for all my dad's pure and good musical education and intentions, he couldn't save me from what was on the radio, and he couldn't protect me from my own taste. So, and that, that is something that I find so beautiful about music, and something that is what, it's why pop music is so is entering into this golden age, I think, right now, even though it feels daunting at the same time because of the whole gatekeepers are essentially gone. But I think it's interesting now because the lines of taste are blurred, and it really becomes about what people are drawing on and referencing and nodding to in sincere and insincere ways. And I think that's kind of a new frontier. I mean, it's been happening over the last 10 years for sure. But yeah, with Jonathan, he he was able to pick up on and translate those references for me, and also just he just respected me. He respected my taste. He respected what the 13-year-old me was in my bedroom listening to and loving. And I hadn't encountered that kind of taste. I mean, that kind of respect from the quote-unquote cool producers that I had worked with previously. And case in point, you know, the first time the Preatures came to LA, when we were this huge, hyped, big deal band, everybody wanted to sign us on the planet. Like, it was like this huge bidding war. I remember a few people, you know, we chatted to a couple of very, very cool producers and label guys and whatever. And they, for some reason, they kept bringing Haim up because we'd been compared to Haim at that point. I'd never heard Haim before. We'd had the comparisons, and now they're one of my favorite bands. But there were a lot of people who tried to do this kind of comparison of the two bands, like, oh, you know, but Haim's not, like, they're not very good. Like, you guys are way better than Haim. And I was just like, what's that all about? Why? First of all, we're different. Second, there's room for many female artists that we don't have to be in competition with each other just because we both do rock with you know, a pop rock with sort of R&B influence. And also I just thought it showed, a disregard and an ignorance about where the line of taste was coming from, because I loved the music that they love. I love All Saints. I love Katy Perry, you know, and it's, I love Led Zeppelin too. And I love Bruce Springsteen, and I love Tom Petty. And I love Janet Jackson, and I love Lauryn Hill. So, you know, those were the influences that it wasn't just sort of straight-edged, uber intellectual, super cool white rock that I was listening to, essentially, is what I'm saying.
I think that just to almost add or to agree to what you were saying previously, is that in the last 5 or so years, it definitely has become a thing where genre is almost a bit of a blurred line, where you can like all these different influences and it doesn't seem to be as, I don't want to say judged, but I think, 10, 15 years ago, you were judged if you did like, you know, The Strokes and some form of pop band. And I think these days now, well, like I won't actually go through it, but in the many records behind me, there is The Strokes next to Katy Perry or next to someone else. Why not be able to enjoy a myriad of different musical things? You wouldn't have the same meal every day. Why do the same for your ears?
Well, I think I grew up with both my parents had a great taste in music, and by great I mean they really instilled in me this love of songcraft and of songs. And my dad would always bring it back to, I'd be like, why do you love this? You know, he used to play me Wilco all the time, and I just like, oh, Dad, this is such boring dad music, which, of course, now I love Wilco. But, you know, he played me Mercury Rev and Flaming Lips and all the classics, Neil Young, you know, Bob Marley. But he was also a great educator for me. Like he would tell me, when he introduced me to Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, he told me the story of the band and where they had come from, and then, you know, what had happened when they lost Syd Barrett and how that had affected the band. And same with New Order. You know, he took me through the whole transition, what happened when Ian Curtis passed away. This is what the band did after that. And, you know, I think like I grew up listening to a lot of Massive Attack and Chemical Brothers and a lot of British music, a lot of Brit pop, Nick Lowe, Elvis Costello, I'm trying to think, the Australian equivalents of that were the Saints and Ed Cooper, the Divinals, the Sports, the Reels. There was a definite line of taste with my dad, and he didn't, there's a lot of stuff that he didn't like, and he was very vocal with me about it. And there were huge, just holes in my musical education, like Neil Diamond. I was like, Dad, what happened? You never played me Neil Diamond. He was like, oh, no, not fucking Neil Diamond. It would be like that. So, there were things that I was only exposed to. I had a nanny that took care of me from when I was 7 until, or actually earlier, I think 6 until maybe 11 or something, until I was, really too old to have a nanny, because my parents worked full-time in the restaurant and I was an only child, so I had nannies. And my nanny she was a trans woman, and she played so much 80s, 70s and 80s stuff in her, because she had a RAV4 with a Magic Happens sticker on the back. And I every day after school, or, whenever she was taking care of me, we would drive. It was ABBA, it was Celine Dion, it was Bette Midler, it was Elton John, it was Wham, so that was happening kind of, that was like my secret divergent musical education.
That's very, very cool. I feel like there is touches of a number of those acts. Some maybe I thought of, some maybe I didn't even think of until you've said them, that kind of that are, I guess, fingerprinted all across this album. It is a beautiful record. Izzi, I know that we only have a little bit of time left this morning. I know that 1 or 2 festival dates have been announced, but can we expect to see you coming back home and touring the record at some point later in the year in Australia?
I'd really love that. To me, touring is my life's blood. I love it. I miss it. I really want to play some shows. I think it's a hard landscape in Australia at the moment for getting any kind of shows off the ground. And being a new mum, I've had to be a lot more discerning about what I take on. But my plan is to do a headline tour early next year. That's what I would like to happen. So 2023 is the year.
Beautiful. That's very, very exciting. I know there's a lot of people excited for this record, and I imagine in turn very excited to see you come and play some shows back at home in Australia. Izzi, thank you very much for your time today. The new album, it is the debut album from yourself, Isabella Manfredi. The record itself is called Izzi. It's out this week, but yeah, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Isabella Manfredi for her time. Izzi is out today, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to buy the record. We also want to give a huge shout out to Maree at Island Music Australia for helping out with today's interview. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Wednesday and Friday morning, and we now have a Patreon, which you can find within the show notes of this episode. You can follow the Players profile on Spotify, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
The most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. Just like tech creators want us to. use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.